voice text. You want to know how long that has taken? That has taken 3 years to get to the point where it is at now, and people are still not happy with it. It's a very amateur thing. I mean, to construct a professional video game from scratch takes years. The EA Sports is talking about releasing this thing in 2010. They had to start it before the UFC game was declared as such a hit. So that's stupid. Of course, the UFC is going to be banning any fighter from the UFC if they appear in the game. The exception will be apparently Randy Couture, because he signed the contract first, and it's Randy. Randy gets away with stuff, which is going to play into my Fedor thing. I mean, Lorenzo, for the record, Lorenzo Fertitta seems to be actually a very reasonable guy. He says ban is a strong word, but it's not going to be a good thing. Like, he's making it clear that it's not approved, but he's not being nearly as vindictive as Dana White is. And that more or less covers the myth of the UFC. I want people to honestly think about that. Next, I'm going to get into Dana White. And I'm going to talk about why. I did a video about why Dana White is not good for the sport now and not necessarily good for the UFC. Of course, it got cut off, so I deleted it. And basically, I'm going to do it again. And, well, here it comes. You look at what Dana White has done for MMA. There's some good stuff. He brought it to his attitude and persona assisted in bringing it to the mainstream. Was the guy who got the Fertittas to buy the UFC and create Zuffa, and that's a great thing, because you know what? Without that, perhaps the UFC doesn't exist. Perhaps mixed martial arts doesn't exist, except for maybe in Japan and Brazil. That being said, you look at what Dana White has done recently. You look at the image he portrays. Can the UFC, and by extension mixed martial arts, take that next step, that step into being viewed as a legitimate sport, as bigger than soccer, as he likes to, bring out? Can it be done with Dana White at the helm? I really don't think it can. So you're looking to take it to a professional level. No sports commissioner gets away with the language Dana does, the trashing of fighters, of the media, of the competition, the way that Dana White does. You don't get away with this, dropping the F-bomb every, video blog, and, calling Loretta Hunt a dyke and saying how Loretta's, lying. And, I mean, you deal with media dishonesty. I'm not saying Loretta Hunt was right. I think she was, but, at the same time, you deal with media dishonesty the way a true sport's supposed to. You deal with it in a professional manner. If you want it there, and Dana keeps voicing it, and that's what, Dana, you're holding the sport back from what it could be. It could be bigger than boxing, or bigger than soccer. I don't think it is. At this point, it's not even bigger than boxing, though, despite the fact that boxing is, until very, very recently, with, Oscar De La Hoya versus Manny Pacquiao, Miguel Cotto coming up, you have these huge fights, which has been motivated by the growth of MMA. But you still haven't passed boxing, who there is no UFC in boxing. You don't get these super fights. The way the UFC right now is basically a monopoly, and was in the past, on the biggest stars in MMA, and they still didn't give us the fights that the hardcore fans wanted. The really, really good fights on a large scale did not happen, and that's a problem. And you got to think that Dana White's part of that. Some of the flame, I guess, you can give to the Fertittas for giving Dana White some power, or Joe Silva, but you gotta believe that when you hear sound bites from Lorenzo Fertitta and Frank Fertitta and Joe Silva, they seem like professional people. Like, one of them should be the face of the company, not Dana White at this point. Dana, of course, it was Lorenzo who basically saved the deal with the American Kickboxing Academy fighters, John Fitch, Josh Koscheck, Christian Walish, Cain Velasquez, who people, aside from Walish, those are all serious hits to the UFC if they lost them, because Dana, basically said, you have to sign over your likeness for a couple of years, and, you don't make any money off of the video game or any use of your likeness. and they didn't want to sign that contract, and he wanted to fire them. And Lorenzo stepped in and, basically made, peace, and they're still in the UFC. He did the Crow Cup thing where he flew to Croatia and made the personal visit to Crow Cup and got him on board. Whereas Dana just hucked insults at him. I would like someone to actually bring to me what Dana White still brings to the sport. Because, I don't think anyone watches UFC to see Dana White curse and, be Dana White. He doesn't bring fighters. UFC money does that. The Fertitta's money does that. The UFC name does that, not Dana White. The great fights that come along are mostly the idea of Joe Silva. So what is it that Dana White does that makes him this godlike figure to UFC fans? Moving on to the Fedor situation. Basically, in a nutshell, what Fedor, I'm gonna kind of try and separate what Fedor's management wants and which is not really important, and what Fedor wants, which I think is important. People don't really seem to understand the importance of Sambo to the Eastern European community, which I'm a member of because, of course, Serbian and Croatian heritage, a little bit of Hungarian, a little bit of Russian, a little bit of Ukrainian, a little bit of Polish. When you look at it, that is our big martial art. That's kind of, we don't excel at a lot of sports. It's basically soccer, water polo, hockey in some cases, and Sambo. Sambos are undisputed. We are the best. It's a matter of national pride for Russians to be the Sambo champion, and Fedor wants to do that. It's kind of, admittedly, no other UFC fighter is allowed to do this, which makes it an odd situation. Can you really cater to one fighter? Maybe you don't, but you know what? They catered to Randy Couture's desire to be in the EA Sports game. He'll probably be the cover boy. So there you go. There's an example of catering to one fighter and breaching the needs of perhaps the others. You look at the situation, and both sides are wrong. Particularly, I hate the way Fedor's management has come up with this. We need to co-promote stuff. That's not important. Drop that. It's bullshit. You're not getting that. Never. You should never get that. It's terrible, basically. Dana keeps trying to do this thing where, he offers more and more money. And he refuses to back down on anything. Nothing about these talks has been a negotiation. If it works out, without intervention from a third party, it's a miracle. It's a freaking miracle if Dana White and Fedor can work out, and Fedor's management, I should say, can work out Fedor in the UFC without a third party. That would be a blessing from the MMA gods. Which, whatever. Maybe we'll see that at the press conference. Maybe we'll see Dana White pull off the impossible. And I will give him all the props in the world, but you know what? I think he's exasperated the situation more than anything. I'm going to move on to casual fans, because that's all I have to say about Dana White. Casual fans. I don't have a problem with new fans, for the record. If you're new to the sport and you don't know much, that is fine. That is perfectly fine with me. Because, you know what? You're new. I was new once. Everyone was new once. We did not know much, but we learned. This is the key. You must try to learn. You also must try not to act like a jackass, like you know everything. If you've never seen a Pride show, you really need to. Go out, look at a lot of Pride shows. You need to look at some of the guys that, routinely we talk about in our videos as top-notch fighters. When I say us, I mean fan of UFC fan, MMA analyst, Biz 2003K, Byron Giant, MMA Insight, Divine Massacre. There are others. I'm sorry if I did not mention you. You need to look at the likes of Aoki and Jay-Z, and you need to get a look at, people like Alistair Overeem. And the thing is, I hate these people, and this has been a big problem. These people have been arguing the anti-Fedor stance, who I swear have never seen Fedor fight before he fought Tim Sylvia, and don't really know these names that, Fedor's beaten. They don't understand, in the end, why Fedor is number one, but they want to argue